Hey everybody, welcome to the Dark Sliders podcast with Doug and Brad.
Yellow. I change one little thing and then you just lose it. You're like, oh, we got to redo the intro again.
It messes with me. I don't know why, because that was not what you've never done that before.
No, whatever. Okay, if we're keeping this, we've had to redo intros like 4 or 5 times because I say something slightly different than hello every once in a while, and it just fucks up Brad for some reason.
Every damn time you go, hello, and like this
Okay.
like super monotone voice, and you freaking change it, and then I have no clue what the hell's going on.
Like, well, last time you got on my shit about it, so I was like, I'll change it to something cheerier and happier.
Well,
Just keep,
anyway,
yeah, keep going.
this is the Dark Sliders podcast with Doug and Brad. This is going to be a little bit of a different week this week. There's not a whole lot of news going on, and we realized that we both pretty much just played the same game, which is Until Dawn. So we're going to do two different things with this. This is going to be our normal video review of Until Dawn. No spoilers, nothing like that, just our normal review. And sometime this week as well, we're going to put up a spoiler cast, kind of like we did for a couple other games. Batman Arkham Knight was one that we did. Did we do two, or did we just do that one?
We talked about doing Metal Gear Solid 5, but I don't think either of us felt strongly enough about the story to do one.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. But so there'll be a separate episode posted, or video posted, or I don't know, whatever you want to call these things, that's has all the spoiler details. We'll talk about the story. We'll talk about who dies, how, when, all that kind of stuff. But this is just kind of our overall feelings of this game, because I know for me, I absolutely love this game, and I think Doug's in a similar position.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We had talked a little bit about before how we're going to handle doing like a review and then a spoiler. I think a lot of people should play this game, and I feel like people shouldn't know any spoilers at all going into this. So this part of the episode is basically us telling, if you haven't played it, you need to play it. And then our spoiler cast is basically, because you played it, oh my god, it's so awesome, and here's what makes it awesome.
Yeah. This is a game that I completely avoided any and all spoilers for. I knew Cabin in the Woods, high schooler, college kids, horror. That's literally all I had going into this. Which sets this up perfectly because there's so many different elements that happen in this game that you have no clue what's coming when, especially for the first 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. I think I talked a little bit about Evil Within a few episodes ago, in which I was kind of complaining that it felt like a mishmash of all these different horror genres. And this one is a mishmash of a bunch of different horror genres, but it works. Like, they flow very well from one to the next.
It's surprising how interconnected they are with these very specific elements from different pieces. And obviously we're being overly vague. If you want the details, that spoiler episode is there.
Yeah.
But just the overall feeling of this game, I can say there are very few games, like, in my mind, the only other game I can think of that I sat through and played that really made me a little terrified was Outlast. But there were scenes in this game where I was a little nervous about, like, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Oh, shit, fuck.
Yeah, it's a really, even not as a game, it's just like it has really, really good horror, like, it sets up the horror really, really well. Like, you'd be watching a really good horror movie. Like, there are jump out scares. There's a lot of jump out scares in this, but I felt all of them were earned. I never felt like a cheap jump out scare. There's a few. I'll say, okay, that's not true. There are a few cheap jump out scares, but they all sort of like lead up to these like really, really intense moments, and they go boo. And I don't know, I like that.
There are a couple cheap ones. I'm thinking specifically in the first couple episodes where it's like or chapters where you're still sitting here going like, what's this game about? What's this game about? Like, oh, if I open this door, oh, there was, and then it makes like a big like noise. Like, there are a couple early on, but I think as the game goes through, it earns them much more. But yeah, the intensity in this game is crazy. And it's not only just from the horror elements, but like the choices in this, every choice I make, I feel like someone's gonna die.
Yeah.
It can be like, do you want to eat a cheeseburger or a piece of pizza? And I'm just like, I would sit there going, dear God, which one's gonna die if I eat the pizza?
Yeah, it's especially near the end. Like, it was really funny. There would be points. I was actually playing this with my dad. Funny enough, like, he was in the room. Like, my dad watched me play through the entire game, and there'd be points where two choices would come up, and I literally paused the game, and we'd sit there and discuss the options. And like, okay, well, if I do this, is that smart? Because the thing I like about the choices too is they make dumb movie decisions seem like good ideas. Like, maybe we should split up, but you're like, wait, no, this is a horror game. should we split up?
Yeah, one of my characters died, and I'm not gonna say who or when or what, but I made one of those dumb horror movie mistakes that totally in my mind was like, this is the right thing to do right now. I should do this. If I'm being a good person, I need to do this right now. And within 2 minutes, that character was dead. And it was like, as soon as I hit the button, I went, shit, that's the point that everybody sitting here watching the movie's going, don't you dare do that, you dumbass. And I sure as hell just did it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of decisions like that. It's kind of cool. I also like how the decisions kind of are laid out. Like you can make the decisions. My goal was to save everybody, but they definitely set the characters in the beginning at least. Like you kind of want to kill some of these guys. Like you wouldn't mind if they died.
There's a few of them because they do play very, very heavy to the stereotypical horror movie characters, especially kind of the teen slasher characters where you've got the jock and the popular girl and the really bitchy girl and the douchebag. I mean, you have every single stereotypical character, and there's just some that, like, initially I'd be okay if you didn't make it through this game. If I didn't have to spend the next 10 hours with you, I'd be okay. Yeah. But I did the same thing. As my goal was, how many of these people can I keep alive until the end? And I didn't know going in how daunting of a task that is. And I don't think it is, because I made it through with only 2 people dying.
Yeah, me too. We'll talk a little bit more about it in Spoilercast, how these characters died, and I don't want to ruin it. But it is kind of cool though. Like your decisions really do kill people. Like I feel like there are scenes that are obviously sort of like kind of carrying you along. If you made the wrong decision, it's okay.
Yeah.
In the beginning. But yeah, like your decisions, like the game kind of sells itself on like your decisions can kill characters, and like they can, and it's really neat, and I like that aspect of it a lot. It kind of feels like I don't know. I don't know. I kind of liked it. I liked it more than like when I'm thinking of like back to like Telltale games and Heavy Rain stuff. I like this one a lot more because it did feel like, especially like the last half of the game, I did feel like I was thinking about every single decision, and I really love that.
Yeah, it feels way more open-ended than any of those games do. Mm-hmm. Telltale games and Heavy Rain and those things, I always feel like there's a set outcome. Heavy Rain, not quite so much. I played through Heavy Rain 2 or 3 times and did get fairly different endings every time, which this game has as well. And I think this lends itself more closely to that than the Telltale games. Mm-hmm. But for sure, more so than in The Walking Dead, which is already an intense game where it feels like I can kill some people.
Yeah,
that still feels way more indirect and way more removed from my immediate decisions than this one does.
Yeah, I can see that. It kind of feels like this one. It feels like every decision I made, like it felt logical. The results from that. There's very few decisions I made where I feel like in Telltale games, you're like, well, that's not really what I meant. In this one, it's like, no, I did mean that, and the results of my actions either were positive or were negative, and I never felt like I was. I mean, you're punished for your decisions, but but like when you think back to the decisions, like, was that a smart decision to make? Probably not.
Yeah.
So I did like that. I did feel like, yeah, like you were saying before, where it's kind of like, yeah, it just feels like everything I did directly affected the story, and it felt like it flowed a lot better because it felt like with I think like Telltale games in general, it's like you'll make a decision, and then after that decision, it feels like everything sort of snaps back to whatever the main storyline is supposed to be.
Yeah, and there's no repercussions from that. It's that decision in a room by itself. It's that decision in isolation. Yes, that decision just had a huge impact on what just happened, but the next scene's going to happen regardless.
Yeah.
This very much felt like, and you described it because you started this a little bit before I did, and you mentioned, we talked just real briefly about it, and you mentioned that it kind of was supposed to be like a choose your own adventure book. Yeah. I had that feeling of, as I played, especially the last 3 or 4 chapters, that I was like skipping past big chunks of this book, that there were big scenes that I'm not seeing because of the choices I made, and there are big scenes that I am seeing that are a direct result of those choices.
Yeah, and
whereas like The Walking Dead, I feel like I see every major component. There's just like a couple decision or discussion parts that pan out a little differently based on my choice.
Yeah, and even if that isn't necessarily true, it at least gave the illusion of that was like that happened. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I feel like with a lot of these games, I probably discussed this before on the podcast, but I feel like a lot of people get mad that like, oh, these decisions really didn't matter because if you play the game a second time, you can tell where the decisions matter and they don't. And you can even feel that your decisions don't matter early on in some other games. But this one, I really did feel it did have that impact, whether it was like an illusion or not. And I did like how the dialogue changed quite a bit depending on how the parties sort of interacted with each other. Like the result might be the same, but I don't know, the dialogue was really, really good. And I felt like I was influencing the dialogue with because of the interactions I was making previously with different characters, that their dialogue was changing. Like they definitely, because this guy was mad at this one guy early on, he's still kind of mad at him now, and that's like brought through in the dialogue. When you could have, maybe forgiven him earlier on, and then you guys would be best buds.
Yeah. I really think this is one of the few games I've played where, without a doubt, I felt like my choices really did have a big influence. About halfway through, I thought, if I just start killing people, will the game just end like 4 hours in and just be done because I accidentally killed everybody? Like I had this moment of, I'm just going to start seeing like, I could probably gun through this game in 4 hours if I didn't want to make anybody live.
I'm actually really curious about that.
Or not, though. Like, how quick can you start killing off characters? And maybe this is probably a discussion that we'll have more in detail in our spoiler episode. But I mean, for me, it was about lengthwise, I think maybe 10 hours for you.
I don't know. I don't know how long it was, but it felt like it ended at the appropriate time. I felt like it I don't want to say like how many hours it was, because I would say there's some parts that felt like it dragged, but it felt like it ended when I was done with the game.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't overstay its welcome. It's definitely not one where I'm sitting here going like, oh man, why didn't they fill me in on this or this or this? It's perfectly paced. It's well written. It's intense. It's freaky. There's just so much to love about this game, and we'll be doing Game of the Years in a couple weeks, and this will definitely be one that I know we'll be discussing for my chunk of them at least, if not yours, because this game is fantastic.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I don't even know if we talked about the story. The story is really good. The story carries on for like we're not gonna spoiler, just this quality of the story and quality of the characters, really good. Like I felt like the story had enough twists and turns that you were never really sure what's going on. Mm-hmm. Characters start out kind of crappy, and then you kind of learn to like them near the end. Not all of them, and I think everybody sort of gets their own favorite character. Like I know I had my personal favorite characters, and I'm sure you had your own personal favorite characters. And I don't know. It's just like everything about this game just worked for what it was. I think some people, because like right now I'm thinking of like some of my favorite games this year. Like this is definitely one of my favorite games this year, and so is Bloodborne. They're like radically different. I like them for radically different reasons. When I finished this game, my dad's like, "Was that even a game?" I was like, "Well, does it really matter?" Because it was entertaining.
This is definitely in that new category of games that's slowly coming out. That, you know what, it's not a Twitch puzzle solving, real fast pace, all about how you're controlling and how you're handling a character. It's much more just, sit back and enjoy this. Because really, the only real interaction you have other than walking around is QuickTime events, essentially. Yeah. That's the whole game. So if you're not into that kind of thing, and we mentioned Telltale games, it feels very similar. Heavy Rain feels very similar. If you're not into that, if you need, the more action-oriented thing, this isn't for you. But going in with the mindset of, okay, this is my choose-your-own-adventure movie, is a great way to kind of go into this. And it plays so well with that. Yeah. But I think we'll leave it there for now for our review. Of course, we're going to keep the discussion going here with this on our spoiler review, which we'll post as well. Again, I'm going to just flat out say, if you haven't played this game, do not listen to it, because I think the spoilers would totally ruin this game, especially some of the early scenes, just with some of the twists and things that happen later on in the game. But we'll be back with a full episode next week. And then we'll have some Game of the Year stuff coming up towards the end of the year as well. But you can follow us on Twitter at darksliders_pod. Subscribe to us on YouTube for more episodes, video reviews, things like that. SoundCloud, iTunes, wherever you're listening to. Thanks for listening.